Paul, simple question. How do we get to this point and how do we get out of it?
We got to this point, Alan, because we've had successive failures of governments, both coalition governments and Labor governments. And I think the great dilemma Australia faces is that the challenges we confront, the problems we confront over the course of the past 15 years have been greater than the capacity of our political leaders to solve. There's a discontinuity between our political capacity on the one hand and the national challenges we face on the other.
The Albanese Labor government only won 32.8% of the primary vote last May, but as you say, they got there on a safe change agenda, that is, no scares, no risks, a contrived manifesto. Are they now going to suffer because of that, because any major reform, like the superannuation announcement, is a broken promise?
There's no question about that, and this is what I've argued for quite some time. Anthony Albanese was really clever, and you've got to pay him full marks for the campaign he waged last year when he became Prime Minister. But the slogan was safe change, and the Labor agenda was a fairly modest and safe agenda. But the problem Prime Minister Albanese faces is that Australia needs bold policies. We need bold policies to confront the problems we face, whether we're talking now about high inflation, poor wages, stagnant living standards, high cost of living, weak productivity, severe national security challenges. All this means that we need a government that's got the capacity to confront the issues and be bold. And so, of course, the problem with the Albanese government is it's trapped between its very modest election agenda, in which it was not anxious to confront the problems the country faces, and the reality that Anthony Albanese faces as Prime Minister when he's got to address these challenges.
But never mind the government. I mean, does the public have the stomach for critical reform? I mean, coronavirus showed us that the public are quite prepared to fall into line with whatever the government tells them to do.
I do think there's a problem with Australia's political culture. And I think this has been building for quite some time. There's a sense of complacency. And the fact of the matter is that the country's been the great beneficiary of the trading relationship with China, high commodity prices, virtually zero interest rates from the Reserve Bank for quite a period of time. So I think that this has lulled the public into a false sense of security.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we've lost the sense of national direction and sacrifice, self-sacrifice, which is going to be required for the public to face up to the challenges the country faces and be responsive when politicians take hard decisions and, in fact, send the signal that they are prepared to accept strong leadership. The country is not there at the moment at all.
See, I made the point that this broken promise, now, it was heralded by many as a triumph. It was going to wedge Dutton. And I'm surprised that Peter Dutton didn't raise 2014, when, as you and I know, in 2014 they came to government and they saw that Medicare was a mess, as it is now, and they promised then in the budget to put a $7 co-payment on, $5 of which was going to go into research to better improve the health situation. Now, Labor screamed from the rooftops, broken promise, the rabble in the Senate said broken promise, broken promise. Some of the media said broken promise, and suddenly they had to back off. Now, when you've got that kind of environment, I mean, Albo led us to believe that everything would be nice and safe under him, as opposed to Morrison. Morrison was on the nose. But now, as you say, we've got higher interest rates, mortgage stress, a massive budget deficit, inflation running way ahead of wages. You've been around a long time. How do you turn that around? And I would argue, Paul, I should say that's not difficult. You've got to just prosecute the case to the public, don't you? We seem to have a shallow talent pool in Canberra, and there aren't people who can prosecute the case.
You need authority, you need courage, and you need persuasion. Now, at the moment, we don't have those qualities in great supply when it comes to our political leadership. In the past, we have. We're the ones talking now about Bob Hawke or Paul Keating or John Howard or Peter Costello. I think if we look at those Prime Ministers and Treasurers, there was a capacity there to identify the problem, put the issue to the public and really wage a sustained campaign. So it can be done.
Definitely.
I think it's more difficult now. I don't think there's any doubt at all that governing in this country is more difficult and reform is more difficult still. But I mean, that's the job of political leaders. I mean, that's why you go into politics. You go into politics to make a difference. You go into politics to put forward the sort of policies the country needs.